So while we're in account store mode, let's go ahead and create our Active Directory one. What do you say? We'll go ahead and create an Active Directory account store. All right, so we're going to go back to the same place we were, account stores and systems. And we see our Acme flat file connector. That's cool. Now, if we look at the resource system view, we're going to see some information about when it did its jobs. And so we'll be able to see history when it's when the inventory was last successful, when the next inventory is going to be, stuff like that. So we can see information from a resource system perspective on that. On the account stores, if we look, we should be able to see a count of the data. So we can see total accounts. So it was 50 accounts that it read from that file. Yeah. Account stores, we're going to do, instead of create universal flat file, we're just going to do a standard create account store. Right? So we're going to click on create account store. And now, let me review my data. Since we already saw it, I could make a mistake. This should be fine. This one should be fine. So now, system type, because we told it we just want to generally create an account store. So what system type? You hit search here. They give you all the types that we can do, right? We're going to do the Active Directory domain services. We're going to create an Active Directory account store. So we're going to select that one and hit submit. Now, it wants the basic information that it needs to connect to that particular domain. Yeah, if you're going to do Azure AD domain or directory services, we're using the same Active Directory services connector. All right, so you can connect to an inventory and AAD DS directory using the same Active Directory functionality. All right, so the name, we're going to put whatever you want to put. I'm going to put the AD domain because I want to be original. Okay. Now, it wants to know the Active Directory forest. So root, what's the root domain you're connecting to? AdDomain.com is what we've titled our forest, our VM. Now, again, we're telling it this is a remote system, so it's going to need to use the cloud gateway. Now it wants the information for what is the proxy account? When I reach out to talk to that Active Directory domain, what account credentials do you want me to use? Okay, so we're going to put in account credentials here. So we're going to use, just because we're being, nice and secure here today, we're going to use the administrator account. But typically, you would create an account and you would give that account for a proxy account only the permissions you want for that account to do what it needs to do in your environment. So if you're not going to be creating and deleting OUs, you might not give it that permission. If you're not going to be messing with, with server objects, you might not give it that permission. You might just give it permission to mess with groups and mess with users, right? So that proxy account, we're at your mercy. You're telling us what proxy account you want to use to reach out to your system. So you permission that proxy account with whatever permissions you want it to have. All right, so now, NetBIOS domain, this is AD domain. Because what it's going to do, it's going to build the username when it goes to log in. It's going to send AD domain/administrator. Right. So you're giving it the NetBIOS name of your domain, and the account's going to use. Then we're going to put the password in here. All right. Sure, it's right. Yep, looks good. And then don't worry about hitting the check button. That doesn't do anything anyway. Maybe they fixed it. It used to come back and say successful, even though the cloud gateway, they can't reach it anyway.
That will be a password.
Yeah. But we haven't told it what cloud gateway to use yet. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if you were on-prem, if EmpowerID was on-prem in the same domain, in the same network as what you're doing, it's not remote, you could do a check here and it would reach out and it would try to do an authentication against that domain and let you know if the credentials you gave it are valid credentials. I'm going to submit. And then just like with the other one, it's going to come up and ask me for what cloud gateway I want to use. So I'll select that and hit submit. And if I've typed everything in right, it's going to give me a list of any domains that are in that forest, right? So if you have multiple domains, it'll list all the domains you want, and you select which one you want to connect to for this account store. So, yep, addomain.com is the one I want, and hit submit. Nope, it will create a separate account store for each one. All right, so we see AD domain in our account store list now. So if we refresh our search, we should see AD domain. Now, just like with the other one, it's not doing inventory yet because I haven't turned inventory on, right? So we're going to go ahead and bring it up. Now we're going to go ahead and turn inventory on and set some of those other settings. So if we edit, go into the edit one view of this domain. All right, a couple settings to keep in mind. Now, I'm not going to do this yet because we'll do this as part of the IAM shop configuration when we do it. It's visible in the IAM shop. If we want for groups that we're going to be in this account store to be visible in the IAM shop when we go to request things, that has to be checked. I'm going to leave it unchecked now so we can go in and make sure we check it when we do our other configuration. Now, do we want to use this for authentication? Now, since this is a cloud gateway, we're not going to use this for authentication. It's not an on-prem, we're not an on-prem solution. I tried it, it doesn't work. You have to use a remote IDP if you want to do that. So we're just saying, no, I don't want to use the Active Directory as an identity provider for logging into EmpowerID is basically what it's asking. Do you want to use accounts from this system to log into EmpowerID? Allow password sync, yep. Since we'll have access to this system, if we change our password in EmpowerID, we won't have to go ahead and synchronize the password down. Allow provisioning as a joiner source, no. On this one, since this isn't the HR system, we don't necessarily want to create person objects from the accounts that we find in this particular account store. So we're going to leave this blank. Now, this is, like I said, this is just a flag that the join and provision rules will look at as they're doing their work, and we'll configure next. All right. Yes, we're going to allow attribute flow. Now, for this one, we do want to allow automated provisioning and deprovisioning via our provisioning policies. So we'll go ahead and check those two. All right. Some of these others are just advanced settings we don't need to care about right now. Down here, we're not going to get roles and locations from Active Directory as far as for us to use those for for our people. So we'll just leave that unchecked. Inventory auto provision OUs as IT system locations. Yes, we'll keep this checked. And we'll take a look at this when we look at our inbox processing, where that's showing up. And then the rest of them, we can just leave the way they are. Now for inventory, we do want to go ahead and enable inventory. And we'll leave it set for every 10 minutes. That's good for us. Now also on this one, since we do have memberships that we can manage, we want to go ahead and enable group membership reconciliation, which means that when we do group memberships in EmpowerID through policy, through RBAC assignments and stuff like that, we want it to reconcile the group memberships and go ahead and make sure they stay synchronized and populated out into Active Directory. So we'll go ahead and turn the group membership reconciliation on. We'll save that. Ready. So that's all there is to connecting from Active Directory. And with any of our out-of-the-box connectors, you're going to have a similar experience, right? So if we have a predefined out-of-the-box connector for a system, generally speaking, depending on the connector, it's going to be follow the bouncing ball, create your settings, and save. And now if we look at our job history, Inventory looks like it's still running. If I scroll over here, it's going to give me runtime data. It's going to say where it's at in its process. So far, it's found 1,000 accounts. Now, the way that we do our inventory process, we do a bulk inventory process. We don't do a read one, write one, read one, write one, right? We'll read the first 1,000 records, process them in memory, write them down to the account table. Read the next 1,000, process them, write them down, just for optimization. Yeah. We would see it's found 5,000, it's found 6,000, it's found 125,000, 126,000. You can kind of keep track of it there. And just understanding that's the way that it proceeds, the way that the inventory processes in an Active Directory environment. It reads the containers first, so it'll bring in the OU structure. Then it goes to accounts, it'll read the accounts, and it'll process through all the accounts first. Then it goes to computers, and it'll read all the computer objects in. Then it goes to groups, and it'll read all the groups in. Okay, and then it completes the groups and group membership. So that's kind of how it processes through. And one of the things you can do is if we go to our system logs and look at in our audit log, we look at new objects. You will be able to see any new objects that are coming into the system. So if you're still got users here, it's still processing through the users. If you start seeing computers, it's processing through computers. If I go here and I say, well, I want to look at AD domain objects only, then it'll filter so I can see just what's going on here. I want to see how many accounts it's done. I can say, well, show me user accounts. And I can kind of get a count of how many user accounts it's done, as it's going through stores. And you can see it here by just scrolling over. Okay, I've got 1,005 accounts. I've got 61 groups. I've got 18 containers.